Too Hot for TV.
Welcome back to Doctor Who Too Hot for TV, the festive advent calendar edition. It's a bit of a mouthful that, but it is what it is. Every day this month, I'm joined by a different guest to look at a different annual story. Now, it's Christmas time, and as always happens, some well-meaning relative has bought me an annual for Christmas because they know that I like Doctor Who and that sort of thing, and I've ripped it open, expecting to get a Doctor Who annual, maybe with John Pertwee, maybe with Tom Baker, maybe with Peter Davison, and I've got the Blake 7 annual 1979, which my loving grandma, auntie, delete as applicable, thinks is basically the same thing. Maybe she'd be right, maybe she'd be wrong. So I've had to persevere with this present before I cast it off to the charity shop later in the new year. But to join me on this adventure, I've got David Gillespie-Pratt. David, how are you?
Am I the unwanted Christmas present of your podcast?
You're very much a wanted Christmas present, but the Blake 7 annual was not on my Christmas list this year. But you know what uncles and aunts are like, eh?
Yeah, I remember getting an X-Files book when I was getting into Doctor Who and Star Trek. It's like, well, you like these things. Well, here's an X-Files book. It's like, I don't even watch the X-Files. Why did you get me that? I either had that or the attempt to get me into proper science fiction. So it's like, we got you some Ian Banks books, or we got you some, John Wyndham, because we want you to read some proper science fiction, not this Doctor Who rubbish. It's taken me about 42 years, but they finally agreed, happy to buy me Doctor Who stuff for Christmas and birthdays, begrudgingly. Usually my sister will be like, I've bought you something, I don't know what it is, but it's on your list.
Well, you've got to have a list if you're a Doctor Who fan, haven't you? Because otherwise people just buy you any old shit with a logo on. People go, oh, I saw this Doctor Who pencil case. You go, I don't want a Doctor Who pencil case. I want the Black Archive on The Ultimate Foe or something like that, which no one's going to walk into a shop and go, I'll pick that up for Dylan.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I'm a bad Blake 7 fan. I don't have the Series B production diary. It is like 50 odd quid. It's not an easy one to kind of say, I want for my Christmas, can you go onto this website and order this print-on-demand book that costs a large amount of money? What is it? Well, I think one birthday my sister bought me, I can't remember the name of the book. It was one of those Doctor Who books that was aimed definitely at teenagers or young adults, because it was in this gigantic font. I was probably about 35 at the time. She just bought a Doctor Who book and thought, I saw it on the shelf in Waterstones, I thought you'd like it. It's only when she got to wrap it up that she opened the pages and saw the size of the font and realised that this was aimed very much at kids. She still wrapped it up and still gave it to me, and kind of, because if nothing else, it gave her a laugh. And at the end of the day, that was the most important thing, that she got a laugh out of it. I did as well, and I've still got it somewhere. I just can't remember what the book was.
Yeah, understandable. So what part do annuals, Doctor Who, Blake 7 or otherwise play in your childhood or indeed your adult life?
I'm of that age where the Doctor Who annuals started to phase out. So growing up, becoming a fan in the early 90s. However, my best friend at the time, he had the Doctor Who yearbook, and I think it was the 1992 yearbook. And that was the one that had a complete episode guide in the middle. And that was, I borrowed it off him, some all fell out because we just kept using it repeatedly. It was the first time I had seen a complete list of every single Doctor Who story. Right. It had archive status, which ones were out on video, the all plot synopses of everything. It was the one with the cover with the 7 Doctors and a Sea Devil.
I remember it well. It's a classic piece of Doctor Who literature.
It is, and it's got all the articles, it's got the comic strips, it's got an explanation how John Pertwee's Doctor knows teeth and curls, all that. So that was well used, and that was the only one I really had. I've picked up several since in charity shops, but the problem I find with the Doctor Who annuals of the 70s and 80s is they're quite nice to have. They look nice on the shelf. You'll flick through them, but reading them is a chore.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I imagine is not like the Blake 7 annuals.
Yes. When you suggest this, I didn't have it, so I found a copy. I had an online copy, and visually it is basically Doctor Who annuals of the late 70s in visually, layout, illustrations. It's so similar. It's virtually the same. Yeah. It surprised me a little bit because obviously we've got one story that we're going to look at. I flicked through some of the others and it's like, these are not too bad. Yeah. Certainly they feel slightly stronger than, it's an annual, it's full of howlers. We've got, in another story, we've got Colonel Travis turns up. They don't have any reference photos clearly of Stephen Greif, so you've got Travis once from the side looking quite an elaborate eye patch that he's got in that one. But it's the same sort of artwork where every single time you get to an illustration of Blake, he looks like a completely different person. There's lots of pinks and the garish pictures. So visually, this is very familiar.
It is very familiar, but you're right. The stories are, and I use this phrase lightly, a step up from the Doctor Who stories of the annuals. And I wonder, because Blake 7 is technically aimed at a slightly older audience, right?
Yes, I mean, if you look at the way back in episode 1, you've got Blake being framed for being a child sex offender.
Yeah.
And that's, the hero of the series, and that's the tone of it. And we also have a fairly brutal massacre in episode 1. So it's definitely meant to aim at a slightly older audience. I'm wondering how many of that older audience would be necessarily buying annuals.
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd thing, isn't it? But then I guess if you're short of merch and you're a fan of something, maybe you do pick up an annual or something like that.
It is. I think there was annuals. There was a couple of the novelizations, but that weird tone, Blake 7 never knew where to sit because it also had features on Blue Peter.
Yeah.
So, they would let's go and watch the Jolly Adventures of Blake while they go and gun down a whole load of troops and blow up a base. And it's like, tonally, it's always felt so odd. They never knew where quite to pitch it. So the annual's quite interesting. There's some educational bits.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite know who it's for.
So the story we're looking at is Revenge of the Mutoes, which was released in the 1979 Blake 7 annual, which came out in September of 78, price £1.50 from world distributors, much like the Doctor Who ones. So I'm presuming you've not consumed this story before.
I have never read this story before. I wasn't even aware it existed.
Well, there we go. Well, so should we jump into the story, such as it is, and see what we can pull from it? So, Federation Administration Commander Kartol Eng basically witnesses a bunch of murders on a very dull day on the planet Bess Hill. Now, at this point, I am a little bit like, this does feel like a Blake 7. I know it's only the first couple of paragraphs, but the Federation as this dull sort of administrative part, or this department of administration within the Federation, feels quite Blake 7, I think.
I think we're going to probably say this a few times. There are lots of bits of this story that are not a million miles removed from what we got on TV. It's something that could have been in an early draft of an episode.
Yeah.
A Federation base, Commander Kratal Eng, fairly Blake 7 type space name.
Yeah.
Under a plexiglass dome, because, in Blake 7, you've got plenty of domes. And they've got the drugged water supply, which is very Blake. So it does feel like whoever's been given this to write, I couldn't find who wrote it, has been given obviously a synopsis of some of the early episodes and lifted certain things.
Yeah.
So it does feel like they've cherry-picked some of the better bits to kind of get this concept of what's going on. I kept thinking of Bexhill for some reason, but it's Bexhill.
I mean, it probably would have been filmed in Bexhill, let's face it.
Yes.
So that's it. And just compared to the Doctor Who annuals, we hear he heard a shriek of raw agony above scuffling and shouting. And so that feels slightly more visceral than a Doctor Who annual. But these Mutoes, they show up, they pick up the guards' guns, and they capture Eng. And one of the creatures says, "Up you get," said the creature slovenly. Approximation of speech. The Mutoes are here. Now,
The Mutoes. And there is a delightful illustration on the cover page of the Mutoes. And frankly, they're terrifying.
They are. But also, strangely, you can see them looking absolutely shocking if they were made by the BBC visual effects department as well.
The illustrator has managed to capture the 5p budget of Blake 7 in an illustration where they didn't need to. I think what I quite liked is that Kratal Eng is a bit of a shit as well, because before he gets captured, Shani, who's his assistant, runs in terror as these Mutoes are rebelling, and basically kind of just dives to the ground and shoves her in the way of a gun, and she gets blasted to death.
Yeah.
And I was like, you bastard, although this is Blake 7, so he's a space bastard.
Yeah. Yeah, we feel like we're in the world of Blake 7. The Mutoes are cool. Obviously, I don't think it was Terra Nation that wrote this, but Mutoes are a very Terra Nation thing. We've had them in Genesis,
Yeah, Yeah, Mutoes, although they've put an E in it, so is
Yeah.
it Mutoes or Mutoes?
Oh.
But, you know, it's the Mutoes. And the first thing when you say Revenge of the Mutos, you think Terry Nation, Genesis of the Daleks.
Yeah.
Is it that? It's clearly someone's, either they know Terry Nation, you've got to have a mutation or a mutant or something there. I'm just disappointed that we haven't got a Tarrant in this story.
I know, it's shocking, really. Or it could have been the Mutoids quite easily as well.
Yes, and I'm surprised there weren't any Mutoids on this planet, but,
Yeah.
you know, there's only a small number of guards. That's,
Yeah.
you know, and that feels very BBC budget.
Yeah. But they've said it's because the population are docile, there's drugs in the food, so they don't really need lots of guards. But yeah.
Which is a very Blake 7 thing again, because of, at time of recording, Series 2 has just come out on Blu-ray, and the episode Countdown, which we watched last night, actually has something similar, which is we don't have many guards on this planet because we've got a bomb there.
Yeah.
So the idea, and that's written after this, so who knows, maybe this is quite influential.
Absolutely.
I doubt it.
Up on the Liberator.
Oh, whoever's written this doesn't know. On the Liberator's flight deck, Blake 7 were for once in agreement. Yes, in this story, they're called Blake 7.
He's got a small word count to deal with here, right?
He's got a very small word. There's a lot of padding going on and a lot of pictures to fill pages, because on the next page is a not bad likeness of Gareth Thomas, rendered in, for some reason, pink with some sort of demon coming out of his shoulder, holding a quite phallic pink tube.
Well, exactly. But they've got to pass the time somehow on the Liberator, right? So they decide they're going to head to this planet and liberate it, which is good.
It's what they do.
Yeah. And so they agree on some sort of plan to split up and head down to the planet. Now, this is where things get complicated for me. So it's Callie and Blake that head down there?
Callie and Blake head down while the others go to do... We don't see what they do. They go and do some other space shit. And you've got... You know, Zen has a little bit of dialogue. Zen's being a little bit pissy. But they teleport down, although for some reason they materialise at slightly different points because reasons. But then something strange happens a few paragraphs later, which could be the bit that you're confused by, because we have Callie, Jenna.
Yeah.
And for a paragraph, Callie turns into Jenna. So obviously the attention to detail, the proofing and the editing of this is absolutely second to none.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. It gets very confusing because Callie and Jenna seem interchangeable.
There's a comment we can make there about the writing of Blake 7 and the interchangeable characters.
So Blake and Callie/Jenna, they get captured by the Mutoes and thrown in with our good friend Eng, don't they?
They get captured ridiculously easy because this is a very short word count. They sort of teleported down and then they're just captured. And the Mutoes, who are depicted in the illustrations as being very short, managed to put a blaster in sort of Blake's cheek. So it's like either he's crouching down or they're on a box or something, or whoever's doing the illustrations didn't quite get the memo. But they are captured very, very fast.
Yeah, they're captured very, very fast. And then there's, like, we're told that the Mutoes are just, like, hideous creatures and they've got all sorts of lesions and stuff on their bodies. But then a Muto pulls a rag aside and shows Blake something. I wasn't really sure what's going on here because there's a description and then there's a picture and it goes, pulled the rag aside from his scrawny chest. Blake could not help but wince. And it goes, eats Flet right off, doesn't it? Which are the spores in their weapon. Because they've got this weapon, this bomb full of spores. But then the picture doesn't seem to be someone's chest. It's like someone ripping open an old, like a strange alien fruit or something.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what that illustration is meant to be.
No.
It's just a bit odd.
Yeah, it's so odd. I just at this point, I'm lost. If I'm perfect. And for a simple story, it did confuse me quite a lot. And not in a Stephen Moffat way.
No, it's in a, have you lost interest while writing this? And because we mentioned Aang is captured by the Mutoes, he gets a fair amount of the word count in the first couple of pages. When he does come back, he doesn't do anything apart from run out to get shot. And he's done. When the Federation troops come in, I was like, what was the point of him surviving? He doesn't really add anything to the story massively.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, oh shit, yeah, Aang is still alive. He's dead now.
Yeah. So the Federation troopers arrive and they start blasting the Mutoes. Blake's tried to convince the Mutoes that they're all on the same side to no avail. There's people with rocket packs. There's people on fire. It's all getting a bit violent.
It's violent. There's a lot of action. You've got some nice pictures with some very unconvincing rocket packs. But yeah, it's all go. We've got molten glass. We've got things exploding. We've got people jumping through windows. It's action-packed. I mean, for a story that's quite thin, there's a lot going on. It's not very interesting, but there's a lot going on.
And during this time, the lead Muto, takes off their teleport bracelets and promptly disappears up to the Liberator, which obviously would be a great B plot within a Blake 7 episode, but we don't really have time to deal with that.
No, he goes up and then they send him back.
Yeah, and so he comes back with Gan, with the head Muto, and who's Gans during this time has basically convinced the head Muto that you've got it all wrong. Give Blake his bracelet back. And then Blake 7, such as they are, just sort of bugger off.
They do. I mean, they sent Gan on a mission of responsibility. I mean, God, you must be desperate if you're sending Gan as your. It's basically send Gan down because he's disposable. There's a very nice. I'm assuming this is meant to be an illustration of David Jackson as Gan on the final page with what looks like a hairy hand holding a gun, but it's just this pink blob that could be David Jackson's shape.
Yeah,
and a short Muto. But yeah, they just bugger off.
So they didn't really liberate the planet.
They hurl the bomb, and basically the bomb that's going to destroy all life on the planet, because they're not. At first, they say they're taking revenge and they're taking the planet back. This planet is ours, but they're actually going to just use this bomb to destroy all life on the planet. So obviously their motivation has changed. So why did they take the Federation prisoner if they've got a bomb that wipes out? See, now I'm starting to analyze the story, which I thought was already quite thin.
Yeah.
It's even thinner.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I don't think there was. You talk about there being no proofing. I don't think there was ever a second draft of this story.
This is very much a first draft. It'll do. We're back on the ship. They have a bit of a snip at each other. Avon walks away saying, "Big deal." Very Avon-like dialogue that we've got here. Yeah, it's incredibly slight.
Do any of the characters feel like the people from Blake 7? Because weirdly, for me, it's Aang even though he's not from Blake 7, he's the one that feels the most like a Blake 7 character. All the others have the bare minimal of dialogue, and they could be insert generic character here.
Yeah, they are incredibly generic. Looking through this and some of the other stories, trying to work out roughly which scripts have they been sent, and I think they must have only got up to the first 6, maybe 7 scripts. Well, you'd say there's not a lot to go on, but actually there's quite a lot of character in those first 6 episodes for someone to pick up. But they clearly haven't. And I was reminded of when we looked at the radio plays, the Barry Letts radio plays, one of us very eloquently said, so it was probably you, that this is what you get when you don't have Chris Boucher overseeing Blake 7. And I think this is another example of this is Blake 7 without Chris Boucher giving it a polish, because the characters aren't there, the dialogue's not there.
Yeah.
What this has over those radio plays, I can't believe I'm going to say that a world distributor annual story beats an official BBC Blake 7 product. This, at least as a basic story, the core story of Blake 7 goes to liberate a planet that's got drugged populace, and there's a Federation commander there, and the locals are rebelling. That could work as a Blake 7 story.
Yeah, as a one-line, if you said, what's this Blake 7 story about, and you gave that as a one-line pitch, you go, yeah, that sounds like a Blake 7 story. Obviously, it needs to be fleshed out about 1,000 times more than it is here.
It does. It's the sort of thing, if this was made as an episode, they would need to add a complete subplot. It's a bit like Bounty. Is it Bounty? There's one episode in the first series where it's just 2 stories sort of smashed together in the hope of trying to make a full episode.
Yeah. How do we feel about the art? We talked a bit about it as we went through the look of the Mutoids and stuff like that. But I'm quite impressed by, I'd say, 50% of the art here.
Yes, I think so. You've got the Mutoes, which are okay. They are quite striking, but it's not a bad illustration. It's just terrifying.
Yeah.
Then you've got the second one, which is the full shot of the Muto, which actually is holding what looks like a Smith & Wesson blaster. which isn't too much.
It's a cool picture, that. I quite
I like that. It's a really good picture. You've got a decent likeness of Gareth Thomas in pink. I know I was making fun of it, but it's kind of captured his face more so than some of the other illustrations I've seen in this annual.
Well, it's because you've got the 2 pages are opposite to each other. So the one of him holding the phallic rod looks like him. Then the next page, it could be anybody.
It looks like he's been on a bad trip.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't look like him at all. And then you've got the weird whatever it is on page 20.
Yeah.
And then got the jetpack.
Yeah.
Curiously shaped jetpacks, but it's not a bad illustration.
Yeah, it's cool. It feels very 1950s, but I dig it.
And then we've got, I'm assuming it's Eng's last stand.
Yeah.
He's got longer hair than I thought, but that's quite a cool picture. Getting blasted. He deserves that. And then the last image is a bit what?
I mean, it's a little trippy, isn't it? It's more of an impression of the shape of Gan and a Muto with a gun pointed at them than like, oh, let's try and do a detailed illustration. So I kind of like the style, but it's definitely because they just haven't got the time to scribble out a full picture to fill this page.
Yeah, it's kind of, again, a kind of it'll do, but it's not terrible.
No.
There are, looking through this one, and when you first suggested Blake 7 Annual, I looked through some of the others, and there is far worse, or certainly more questionable artwork in some of the others, particularly when they try to depict Servalan when you haven't got Jacqueline Pierce's image rights.
It's a running theme within the World Distributors Annual, shall we say. There are many a person. The lead actor, say, I don't know, Gareth Thomas or Tom Baker, always looks reasonably like who they're supposed to, but supporting characters can look like, they can look like me, they can look like you, they can look like my nan.
Sometimes all three in the same story.
Exactly. Do you have much more you want to say on this?
I don't think there's much more you can say on this. It's very thin. It's not a bad story. I don't think... I went into this thinking this was going to be appalling. My experience of Doctor Who's annual stories is they are wild and different and sometimes bear little relation to Doctor Who. So I went into this expecting it to be some weird interpretation of Blake 7 that doesn't fit. As we've said, it sort of does. Yeah. It's not a great Blake 7 story, but it doesn't feel alien to it.
Yeah, it feels on brand.
Yes, as much as anything would have been on brand in 79.
Excellent. Well, look, it was fun to dip into this other annual story and see that in some ways, a slight bit more care is paid to the story, and in other ways, absolutely no care at all has been taken for this thing. But it was a hoot. I'm going to be back tomorrow with another guest, another annual. Hopefully, whatever relatives bought me a Doctor Who annual this time has got me a proper Doctor Who annual and not this Blake 7 malarkey. But until then, I've been Dylan.
And I'm David Gillespie-Pratt.
And this has been Doctor Who Too Hot for TV, the Advent Calendar. Merry Christmas.
Doctor Who, too hot for TV.
Incidentally, a happy Christmas to all of you at home.